So again, let's look at this chart as we talk about how drinking at a young age affects your brain so much and makes you so much more likely to become an alcoholic. Remember, the prefrontal cortex is your decision-making area of the brain. And by the way, that prefrontal cortex doesn't fully become developed until about age 24 is where most experts believe it finally is fully developed. Now, let's say that a teenager decides to drink alcohol to alleviate stress, which is one of the reasons we'll talk about why teens drink. What does that do? Then that synapse that you can see in that red area connects and wires your brain so that every time you get stressed, you think, how am I going to deal with this? What should I do to deal with this anger, this stress, whatever? And you make those connections. And the more you drink during that time, the more those wires are making those connections. So pretty soon that's what you decide every time. It's hard not to. Or let's say someone drinks because they want to fit in or be more social. And that synapse at your young age comes together. The wiring of your brain says, okay, if I need to be more fun, if I need to be more social, then I need to drink. And pretty soon you're wiring your brain to become an alcoholic. Every decision you're making is being already made for you by that prefrontal cortex. And that's kind of, in a simplified manner, how that works. And again, you can see that right now in your life is when there's a lot of brain plasticity, when a lot of connections are being made. So now is definitely not the time to ever touch alcohol. Now let's talk about how alcohol affects your brain immediately, the immediate effects. In fact, as soon as you get alcohol into your bloodstream, as you look at the left side and right side of your brain, this left side is the side that gets saturated first and most. And so it's the side that's going to be affected most. Yes, eventually it will make its way to the right side, but it's the left side that is affected most and earliest and most severely. So let's talk about some of the things that transpire on the left side of the brain that are being affected as soon as that alcohol gets in the bloodstream and it gets into that, because it only takes a matter of seconds once it gets into the bloodstream to start saturating that left side of the brain. The first one I want to talk about is logic. Okay, what is logic? Logic is common sense. It's the ability to see this and logically know that this is going to happen. An example of this, I had a student a few years ago that was shared with the class, and I appreciated that. He talked about his older brother who was living at home and was an alcoholic. And one night he went out, it was a weekend, and the next morning his dad got up, his mom got up, they looked in, his bed hadn't been slept in. They were worried about him, of course. So they called his friends, and his friend said, yeah, he was with us, but he left at 1, 2 o'clock in the morning. He should have been home. And so then they really get worrying. Then the dad goes out in his robe and slippers to get the paper, and there the son is, just right at the bottom of the porch, the steps, on the grass, just sleeping. So he wakes up his son, brings him in to the house, sits him on the couch, and he's still, not totally sober. And he asks his son, he says, why didn't you just walk a few more steps and come in the house and sleep on the couch? And this is where you can kind of see what we're talking about when we talk about logic. His brother said, because when I came to the door, I noticed on the side of the door, it was fall time, and they had this board on the side of their door that had fall written on it. And he thought if he walked through the door, he would fall and kill himself. Now, you're smiling because you're saying that's ridiculous. Well, that's what happens when you don't have any logic. You can't think logically like a normal thinking person.